In today's market, Japanese sports cars are fetching ludicrous prices, but there is one car that you can still buy that won't break the bank.
Mark II MR2 provides an interesting option on the current market if you're looking for a used Japanese sports car. It's sort of underappreciated compared to a lot of the more popular cars if people are looking more towards their Civic Type Rs, their MX-5s, etc. But I do believe, as a biased opinion, as an owner of one, that it is the most unique, interesting and best for the money that you can get. We have the mid-engine behind us. In this example, we've got a naturally aspirated MR2, the Rev 3 generation. So we are looking at a 173 brake horsepower when new from the 4-cylinder engine. We're looking at about a 7,200 red line, and it gets there quick. This behind you, this power plant, I mean, we'll try and find a section to open it up a bit, but having such ability behind us, I mean, second gear, and there's now a corner. And that's red line. It's incredible. You can get yourself one of these, you're not gonna get yourself in trouble. They're under that threshold of fun versus performance. You know, it's not slow car fast, because they're still quick. They're not fast cars though, especially compared to modern standards. The amount of knowledge you'll gain on weight transfer, and that's a comment on one of the issues that these cars can face, is this stigma, and I'd like to call it a myth, but it's a stigma of the snap oversteer. When I first got on the car, and I'd gone from a front engine, front wheel drive car, I had a Mini before this, and then I went straight to this, and it was a big step for me to appreciate, and I nearly binned it the day after I got it. I wasn't quite prepared, and I nearly stacked it. And it can be quite intimidating when you hear of the snap oversteer, but you have to understand that it's not going to randomly come out and get you. You're not going to be driving along and, oh God, no, I'm in a bush, I'm in a tree. That's not the case. What will happen with the snap oversteer, to simplify it, is if you're going too hot into a corner, and you would do what you naturally do, is you'd come off the throttle and you'd hit the brakes. If you were to do that in MR2, you will unsettle the weight balance, and that will cause the oversteer. And because of the amount of weight that you're trying to then control, which will swing around, as you've got around like a 45-55 split in this car for the weight balance, it's not 50-50. That will lead to, you'll go around, you might correct it, but then it will come back around on you. And I've had it a few times now, and you have to slightly rewire your brain if you've not got used to that kind of feeling before, to keep your foot in it when you start to lose it. So this car is near enough standard. We've got the standard wheels and standard sized tyres on there, and obviously not the original manufacturer from the 90s. This car's running Toyota Proxy TR1s, which is quite an affordable performance tyre, which a lot of owners, especially of Japanese cars of this kind of budget, will go for, just because with these smaller wheels, we're running 15-inch wheels. We are 6J on the front and 7J on the rear, as you're running in a staggered fitment in an MR2 to help with that weight at the back. And that's why on acceleration, they have such an incredible launch. And again, that handling is just so addicting. The turn in is incredible, smooth on the power. If you wanted to go back into looking at power for these cars, obviously there's a few options you can have. With the naturally aspirated MR2s, they kind of differ between 163 to 173 brake horsepower from the factory. The Rev 3s were the highest at 173, like this one is, and then you kind of around that, you're around 165 due to emissions and different tech, etc. Between the different generations. And you run realistically from Rev 1 to 5. There's technically a Rev 6, but it's basically just different lights and that, and they're a bit unusual. There is also, if you wanted to stay naturally aspirated but you wanted more power, there is the Beams MR2, but those are incredibly rare, JDM only, but that would give you around a 200 horsepower NA 3SGE, which is high revving compared to the standard Toyota version. But one of those, you'd be looking around £8,000 now for a running example of one of those, and upwards from there. And then you do have the next one up for, if you wanted to get more power, realistically an MR2, the best direction to go to if you wanted to get more power in one of these is to then look towards getting yourself an MR2 turbo, or even swapping in an MR2 turbo drivetrain, which is a new engine, a new gearbox. If you're looking at getting an MR2 as your only car, such as I did for a while, I did have 2 cars, but I dailied this over my Mini Cooper at the time. They are actually incredibly comfortable on the standard suspension, rides incredibly nicely. The only issue is when you're looking, if you're going to do a lot of motorway commuting, they can sit a bit high on the idle. If you're going around 70 miles an hour, you're going to be driving at around 3,500 RPM, and that's not too great on the fuel. And especially these days, now in 2022, with the changes, if you're in the UK at least, you have to run these cars on premium fuel for the lower ethanol content, and that does come at a hefty price. On the practicality side of things, some people would think because it's mid-engined that you will have a frunk or you won't have a boot. Kind of a bit of both. With the MR2, you get both a small storage compartment at the front, which is where your spare tire and your battery sits for the weight distribution, but there's a bit of space on top to put some items, you know. And then the boot is reasonably sizable. You can fit a fair bit of shopping in there as well. You can fit a Mongoose exhaust in there for reference, as that's what I've got on this car. Is the other modification this car has is a Mongoose back box to give it a bit more volume and a bit more depth to the sound, but it's not too loud and aggressive. Now, being a 90s Japanese car, and especially if you've got a Japanese import which has come over, you will be faced with the dreaded salted roads of the UK, and the fact that Japanese cars' metals are quite attracted to it, and they like lightweighting themselves in a la Colin Chapman style. If you're looking at one of these cars, ask the owner, have they done the foam delete from behind the seats? There's foam built in just back here, which is there as kind of acoustic and soundproofing foam for the vehicle. But over time, and a lot of Toyota models suffer from this as well, Celicas, Corollas, etc. They suffer because this foam can gain moisture and it can rot the cars from the inside out. So if you've got poor weather seals with the T-bars and you're storing the car outside in the wet a lot, perhaps you might end up suffering from a lot of this moisture buildup. So to conclude the review, should you buy a Mark II MR2, and is it the best Japanese sports car that you can get for the money? Yes. You're not going to get a more interesting car for the money with the performance it has and the scope for more in the future, in my opinion, than a Mark II MR2. You can't do better. This is what the Japanese do so well, is just quality for cost and the amount of bang for your buck that you get. So this has been my review of the Mark II MR2. This has been my review of Marty, my Mark II MR2. If you've enjoyed it, let us know. Let me know what you want to know more of, and please keep watching the journey, because we're not done. We're not done. Yes, please. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.